Can you guys hear me all right? Nope. Can... Are we up? Here we go. There we go. Okay, I think I can hear myself. Don't know if that's a good thing or bad, but hopefully you guys can hear me all right. I want to thank you so much for coming and joining us here at Linary Church of Christ this Sunday, the 6th. For those of you who are visitors, we're so thankful that you're here. And I want you to know that I am not normally the one who is up here, and that is good for all of us. Normally I'm the one who gets to stand in front of the teenagers. I know I don't like them either, but someone has to do it, so I make sure that I'm there. No, just kidding. We really do love our kids. The whole congregation as a whole, but Mitchell and Gail are out enjoying a weekend with their family, so I'm standing in for him this week. So if you want to hear what it's normally like, go look at previous lessons or just come back next week. I promise it'll be just a little bit better. But I have been told short and sweet will be the way to win your hearts over. But I can't do it too short because I'm not looking for a preaching gig. So I'm going to try to extend it just a little bit longer than maybe you'd like. But all jokes aside, I'm really excited to be here. I do want to announce that starting Wednesday, September 16th, we are going to start having our Wednesday night classes again. So I'm really excited for that. I've been missing the midweek meeting that we would have. We won't be doing a meal to start things out. We'll have the adults will be here in the auditorium, the teens will be up in the teen room, and then we'll have a kids class. It's very similar to what we do for Bible hour. So that way we're not going to have to break up into too many groups and stuff. We'll have Bible hour, teens, and adults. And we'll meet directly there. So if you come that Wednesday, don't bring your kids in here. Just send them to their class, and I guess I'll take care of the teens. We'll find something for them to clean up or do or something. But anyway, so we're very, very excited for that. And apologize, I do want to talk a little bit about the last couple of weeks from our family. It's been kind of long. Been a lot of stuff going on. So our daughter, Alina Audrey, was born 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So she's been gracing our lives with lots of sleep, lots of, or sleepless nights, I guess you should say. We've really enjoyed having her. Elizabeth's been a fantastic big sister in ways that I couldn't even hope for anything better. She can hardly get her to leave her alone, actually. But she'll pat her head, she'll sing to her, she wants to play with her, do everything. It's so sweet to see that, and I think as a parent, that's all you could ever want is for your kids to love on each other like that, and I hope it stays that way more than just the first couple months. She does like to cover her ears and run when she starts crying. She's not very good with that, but everything else, she does a really great job, and I'm really proud of her. And my wife's trying to open a bakery, and that's been adding a lot. I started some online school to continue education to better serve our kids. So it's been a long couple of weeks with things getting going, but we're really excited. It's really exciting to see this many people here, even on Labor Day weekend. I know we got several families out, but again, thank you for choosing to be here. One thing that some of you guys might know about me, and I guess you're about to find out if you don't, is I've been a sports fan all my life. I grew up, starting at 5 years old, I played baseball, and I did that until I was 15. I shouldn't have stopped, but when I started lifting for football, it really messed up my swing and messed with my head. So I stopped that. But I played football from third grade through senior year. I coached football and baseball and volleyball and basketball. I threw shot put and discus and track and field. Not really the discus. That was really bad. But my shot put was halfway okay. Something I've always been involved in. I've been a referee. I don't have any kids playing yet. Elizabeth does want to play soccer when she can, and she should be able to here in the next, I think this next season actually. But sports have always been a big part of my life, and it's something that I've really enjoyed. And it's something that I think it kept me out of a lot of trouble. I had thankfully some very good religious men who helped lead me and guide me. I almost think that sometimes I learned more from my coaches than I did sometimes from home life or even certain times in my life in church. I think it's such an important thing to be able to plug kids into. And I know we have several athletes and people who have good people in their lives and are helping bring them up. And it's just an amazing thing to see for me watching the kids grow up and be a part of something like that. But one thing that I always have had an issue with, not always had an issue with, but have seen is sometimes when we go to a sporting event and we're attending and we're watching, I don't know that I've always been the best in terms of showing the love of Christ in the way that I act. If I don't agree with a call that a referee made, if I don't agree with a play call, because I would have known better for what the coach should have been doing with his players at that time, because I was the one working with them all the time. But regardless, I see myself getting frustrated, getting upset, and doing things that I probably shouldn't be doing as a role model for Christ. I think of fans, and I think a lot of times we think of stuff like this. I got the guy in the top left. He's over there sitting at a Georgia game, the lone warrior for Tennessee. It's a beautiful thing. We got a couple excited fans up here, painted, just having a good time. From Colorado, I had to throw in the Broncos, Mile High Stadium packed, and the Barrel Man, one of my favorites as a kid. He still does that. It's amazing to me. And then the other guy painted. But being a fan and going to sports events, those things should be good times. Those are exciting times. It's fun to be there. I got to say, one of the most exciting things I've done in terms of sports, or in terms of visiting and being a part of, was watching Keaton Freitag's Stone Memorial basketball girls last year. They had a great season. They made it to the Final Four in state, and then the COVID came and made them co-champions. It was unfortunate because we were going for full-on champions, but I remember not being very happy with that committee who decided to make those changes and decided to stop it. I bet if you could ask Jeff Freitag, he might have had some other thoughts. He might have been, if he was Jesus, he might have called down 10,000 angels to destroy that committee and put them out, because we wanted the girls to play, and rightfully so. I mean, it's just tough to see that kind of stuff happen, especially when you have love and you're invested into those things. Sports brings so many emotions. I mean, here we got a lot of happiness, we got a lot of things good going on, and the good feelings you get, and then sometimes it's a little tough. I don't know what that boy is crying about, the little boy. It looked good as a picture. I hope it's because the Broncos were doing bad. I hope it's not something bad just happened, but it's frustrating. I think we can all, we can all have the same feelings what Tennessee goes through every now and then. I mean, the first half of the season was what I think of when I see the guy on it is on the left. I gotta make sure, I feel like it's on the other side. But anyways, sometimes sports do that to us. When you're invested in something, our emotional reactions are something that can be really big, and our emotions and things are really hard to control. And it's something I think that's worth looking at. And what would Jesus look like if he was a fan, if he was going and he was participating in as a spectator in these things? And I couldn't help but think of Jesus he'd go to these games, and no matter what teams he was watching, I think he'd have a split jersey. Yes, that even means if he was watching UT in Florida, UT in Alabama, I'm sorry, he'd have a split jersey. I think he'd have the numbers of every player, the names of them, on his back and on the front, because there's so many people out there. He'd be cheering and loving on every single one of them. He would know every stat about each and every single player, coach, and even the faculty members, whether it be for a professional team or a school. He's going to know everybody who's involved with them, and he's going to love them all the same. And one thing to note about the stats is I think he's going to know the good and the bad. He's going to know our failures. He's going to know our successes. And he's going to encourage us in any way that he can. He would be the most fiercely loyal fan you could ever have. It does not matter if you got blown out 63-0. It doesn't matter if you ended up 1 yard short of scoring a touchdown to win the game. It doesn't matter if you missed the game-winning shot or if you made it. He's going to be there for you no matter what. He's never going to stop believing in you. And I don't think we have that big of an issue here as Tennessee fans. I've been other places where I've seen teams struggle, and it changes the way people act. I lived down in Miami for a few years, and I tell you, when LeBron James and those guys were down there in Miami, the Heat were everything. People loved them. It was great. But as soon as King James left and they started struggling a little bit, they don't fill up the stadium in the same way. If you're not winning, you're not producing, you don't matter. I know that falls more in the professional realm, but when I lived in Tallahassee, I tell you, Florida State's struggles are real. But their fans don't treat them the same way that Tennessee fans do and come out the same way. And it's amazing to see the loyalty that can come and what that means to the program. Because I'll tell you, it's rough seeing those kids go through what maybe the Florida State kids go through with the fans treating them the way they do. And then seeing the way that Tennessee can react and turn things around halfway through the season when they still got the love and support. It's kind of a cool thing. Big thing, Jesus would love the refs and coaches just as much as the players and other fans. I mean opposing fans too. But he Even if the ref makes the worst call you've ever seen, he's still going to love him. And, I'm not saying he wouldn't call him out for it. He might tell him, hey, I don't agree with that call. But he might not express it in certain ways. He might have a way to control that just a little bit. And that's tough sometimes, because especially when we have emotions enveloped in these things. I'm talking about kids. I'm talking about maybe your nieces and nephews. Maybe it's your alma mater, whatever it is. When you have emotions involved, it's really hard to control that. But Jesus is amazing and able to do all that stuff. I'm going to read real quick before I jump into it. Galatians Chapter 5, verses 16 through 26. Galatians 5, we're going to be talking about, I should have mentioned the title is Fruit of the Spirit, because we're going to talk about how the fruit of the Spirit should dictate the way that we act during these things, during the situations and the games. So I'm going to read here this portion from Galatians, talking about the Spirit, and then I'm going to get into what that looks like when we translate it to being fans at a game. Start in verse 16. I say then, walk by the Spirit, and you will certainly not carry out the desire of the flesh. For the flesh desires what is against the Spirit, and the Spirit desires what is against the flesh. These are opposed to each other, so that you do what you do not want. But if you are led by the Spirit, you are not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are obvious: sexual immorality, moral impurity, promiscuity, idolatry, sorcery, hatreds, strife, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambitions, dissensions, factions, envy, drunkenness, carousing, and anything similar. I am warning you about these things, as I warned you before, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the spirit the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. The law is not against such things. Now those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit. Let us not become conceited, provoking one another, envying one another. And so, I know some of that stuff was pretty heavy when we're talking about being fans and going to a sporting event, and I do agree. I mean, we could definitely dissect and dig into our lives and what this really means and what the fruit of the Spirit really look like. But it's also important to look at the small things, because if we can't live these things out in the small things, how are we going to be trusted with the big things? So we're going to take a look. I've paired these off minus the last one about what it would look like to be a fan. So the first two, of course, are love and joy. And what I would ask you is, what is it about the sports that we love? I think that it could be just a sport. Maybe you played it as a kid, whether it's football, baseball, hockey, anything like that. It could just be the sport that you love. It could be the team. I'm talking more about sports professional teams. Growing up in Colorado, we didn't have a lot of good college teams, so we pulled for our Broncos and hoped the Rockies would do something someday. Maybe it's the school. I think that's where you start getting into a little bit more love and admiration. Maybe it's UT. Maybe it's the local high schools at SMHS or CCHS. But there's more tied to a school than there is to other things there. Maybe it's an athlete. Now, when it could be an athlete, maybe you have a favorite sport athlete, maybe like a LeBron James. As a kid, John Elway for myself, I just loved the way he would throw the ball and make the Broncos good even when the rest of the team wasn't all that great. But the biggest ones I think comes down to are like if it's your children, if it's your, like I said, nieces and nephews. If you're the Atkinsons and you're out watching Jacob, I mean, you're pulling for Jacob to land his dismount correctly. Right, Jacob? Have you been sticking it good in practice? You been doing good in practice? All right, you better. Or, if you're the Freitags and you're watching Keaton, or Reagan and her dance, either one. That still counts as sports. I'll take it. Now, I am going to call Keaton out from the pulpit here on something. Keaton, I want you this year, when you got open shots, girl, you have the ability to make it. Since it came from the pulpit, that means the Lord wants it. So, so you remember that. But don't shoot it every single time. But just remember, there's the next pass is not always the best play to make. All right, we believe in you. Or maybe it's the Welches and you got Sophie spiking the ball in people's faces. That's probably my personal favorite when people hit it. Or if she gets up there and stuffs it, that's fun too. But in all reality, I don't have Gavin here to pick on. I was going to pick on him about playing some football. But we have a lot of kids here who do play sports, and it's something that's a big part of their lives. And so there again, we have families who have a lot of things going on with that. But there's a lot of emotions. There's not a lot of love going into that. And when you feel like something's going against your kid or against your team, that's tough. I mean, when I've got referees who make an obvious bad call on maybe Keaton's playing good defense, but they're calling a reach-in or something, or when obviously it was a charge, but they called the block, or, if maybe there's a judge being tough on Jacob's grades and they don't give him as high a grade as he deserves, or maybe if it was the other team in the net, not Sophie. I mean, the idea is when the call seems wrong in our eyes, it's very, very easy to let people know about it. And it's very easy because of our emotions to let go a little too far, a little too fast. And I don't blame you. I love the kids too, and trust me, I want it. I was watching a game with Conrad and Crystal. We were watching Sophie on Tuesday, actually, and some of the parents from the other team were getting a little edgy on the rest, and they were even winning. And that was the best part to me, is that they were winning and doing pretty well, but any little thing that happened that went Stone's way, they were letting people hear it. And I just thought that was really, really interesting, because when you do that and you take your love for something and you react in that way, it kind of takes some of the joy out of it. But if you think about it, the reasons that you love the sport and that you're there, you should just be taking joy from that, no matter what's going on, because we love to watch these kids play. We love to watch our schools play. That love should lead you to joy. And no matter what's going on, just be happy that you're there. I'm happy to be here supporting my kid. I'm happy to be here to support my school. I'm happy to be watching on TV my team that is out of town that I can't listen, or listening on the radio when I can't get to the game. That brings me joy. It's an excitement. It's because of the people that are in it, or the school, or whatever, the sport. It's bringing you joy. And those things they go hand in hand. And it's a big thing to remember that if we miss out on that, these events are going to become hard to go to. I mean, yeah, you're going to go because you're going to support them, but what's the ref going to do next? How bad are these refs going to be? Man, that coach last time, he didn't use his timeouts right. Is he going to manage that clock correctly? I don't want to lose another game because of him. When we should be there supporting the kids and loving them no matter what's going on. But Jacob, you better make that dismount. I want it right. That's going to make me angry. But in all seriousness, we have to remember to let our love lead to joy. Because if we don't enjoy, or we don't have the joy in it, I mean, it's not going to be setting a good example for our kids. It's not going to be setting a good example for the other fans and for other people that are there watching it. That joy will lead us into the next stage, which is peace and patience. Because if we let the joy take over, it's going to allow us to have peace when things aren't going the way that we want to. When the ref makes a bad call, yes, you might be a little upset by it, but the joy of being there for the kids is going to outweigh that. Again, I mentioned poor clock management, a bad play call, a bad penalty. I really was thinking of Conrad when I was in this section, because there was a girl or two that had a couple rough serves for Sophie's team, and instead of being any frustrated with it, he'd just say, "I'm glad we got that out of your system. On to the next one. Got it out of your system. Let's keep going." And that's, I can't think of a better way to show peace and patience in a situation like that. The referees, one of my favorite quotes, I should have written down who it was from, but one of my favorite quotes in terms of referees that I've ever heard was, is a baseball quote. He said, "I've never questioned the integrity of an umpire. His eyesight, yes." Because, man, sometimes when they're doing stuff, it's just, ugh. How did you see that? How are you watching the same game I'm watching? And that frustration's okay. I'm not saying don't have that, but don't let these things take away from the joy of what's going on. Let that work and be peace, and let that peace and patience come with it. Now, this is not going to be overnight. This is something that takes time and practice. You're going to have to bite your tongue on more than one occasion, and that's okay. That's part of the growing. That's part of the testing, part of the proving in this set of stuff in our life. And I just can't help but think that's what Jesus would do. And I hope that I think he's looking at us as fans too the whole time, thinking, how are we going to react to what's going on down there? Because we know how he's going to do it, but how are we going to react, and are we going to reflect him in watching this event? Because it's even the little things, even just at a sporting event when we don't think anyone's watching, people do see how we act, especially here locally. I mean, when you're at SMHS or you're at CCHS, people know each other. And if you're out there and you say a few choice things or you get a little out of hand with what's going on, people see that. And it does reflect on who you are, what your place of work. You're just going to be is going to tie back to the congregation that you affiliate yourself with. I can only think of how big it would be for someone like Michael or Larry Patterson, having their business that's so prominent. And then, if Michael's out there hooting and hollering, people are going to know who Michael is. And I've seen him at lots of games. He goes and he supports, and it's amazing. Actually, I'm always surprised. I remember seeing Lori and the kids and him at several games, and I remember asking Lori, man, how do you guys find time for this? And she just told me, well, she talked about how they love sports, and so what else are we going to do here in Crossville? We're going to get out here and we're going to love the kids, and we're going to support them. And so it's amazing to see that love and support, because I know they don't have any kids up in there yet, but I better believe that if they do get up there, that Mike will be right there cheering them just like he does now. So peace and patience. Now, when that, as we get going, I totally forgot to mention that sometimes in the peace and patience section, I mentioned fans from other teams that sometimes they can rub you the wrong way. Sometimes, I'll be honest, it rubbed me the wrong way when I saw teams calling out the referee, when I saw fans doing things that weren't going right. And it was that little aggravating. I thankfully didn't go out and say anything, or if I ever did, I hope I would do it in the right way and just encourage them to love and enjoy their team and how they were doing. Another thing I think sometimes can be frustrating is when the other team is doing well, because unlike Jesus, I don't have a split jersey. I'm there to support my kid. I'm there to support the school I'm there for. Sometimes it's frustrating to watch other people do well. But I think it's important to make sure that we recognize when the other team does well and remember that they are people too. Jesus cares about them just as much. And while we might not be happy our team's losing, peace and patience can prevail, and we can still show love towards the opposing team and their fans. The next two that we got is kindness and goodness. Skipping over my notes. Kindness and goodness. Now. I think what it does here is that kindness and goodness kind of pushes your peace and patience to the next level. Again, I think you're seeing that there is a progression in the way the spirits are laid out here. The kindness and goodness, goes into the way that you treat people when you do have to interact. Because sometimes we can sit there and we can just sit back and not say anything or do anything. But if we are we do have an opportunity to react to people, hopefully it's good things. Even if we're frustrated with what the ref said. With the fan that's next to me, I'm going to tell him, hey, I don't agree with that call. Hopefully look at the next one right, instead of who knows what else we could say. There's a lot of things I could say about what the refs will do sometimes. Or, when, like Conrad did when he said, we got that out of your system, let's move to the next one. You could have said a lot of things to the kid, especially if you're expecting them to do well. You might be harsher. You might be cruel. I've had a lot of coaches in my life who, when you didn't succeed, didn't always bring it out in the best way. Sometimes they'd lay it out to you in a way they'd make it clear how they felt, and they make it very clear what you should have done. And it was not always best. I'll be honest, I was even guilty of that myself when I was younger, when I coached. And it wasn't I'm not proud of it, not proud of the way that could have looked or been, but thankfully, over time, God is able to work through us to let us know that kindness and goodness are a huge and important part of the way that we treat people. And I promise you that when you treat people with kindness and goodness, you're going to feel better during and after the game. Because I don't know how many times you go to a game and you get a little frustrated with what's ever going on. You say some stuff to people, or you even thought some stuff. Maybe afterwards you look back and, man, I wish I wouldn't got so riled up. You step away from the situation and realize it's not that big a deal. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have felt that way. It is a game. Yeah, I'm upset we lost, but I could have handled it better. And I think that's important to remember that God, when He puts these things out and when they're written to us in the Bible, it's not just because we're supposed to do them, but it's actually for our good. We're gonna benefit greatly from the things that we do when we choose to follow what the Lord set out for us. So when you follow the fruit of the Spirit here, you're gonna get a lot of benefit in ways that you couldn't even imagine. First of all, people are gonna look at you different. Be like, what's wrong with that guy? Why isn't he mad? And why does he treat me so nice? but you're gonna feel good about it at the end. I promise. It's an amazing the way that God works in us when we let the Spirit work through us. Faithfulness and gentleness. Loyalty no matter what is going on. No fair weather fans here. Now, I know when you're talking about your kids and stuff, I hope you're not going to disown them if they don't do well. But if it ever got that bad, just let me know. We'll talk about it. We'll get their performance up if we need to. But in all honesty, it's if you're committed to something, go all in. The faithfulness and come into it. Jesus is going to be faithful to you no matter what. He obviously came and he lived and he died for us. So when it comes to our teams and to loving what our kids are doing or maybe what the schools are doing, it's awesome to be loyal to that and to push for that. I'm a homer. I will always be loyal to my Broncos and my Rockies, Nuggets, Avalanche, all those teams, no matter how good or bad. UT is growing on me, and I feel like I can really pull for them, and I feel like if I didn't, I'd get in real big trouble. So we're gonna pull for UT too. But in all honesty, it's just I know so many people who they miss out on the true love and joy and everything that can come from this if you just hop around and go with who's doing well. Because then you can't develop relationships for it. You can't develop the same excitement because if you're cheering for the team who's always winning, it's no big deal. Like if you're, it makes me think of people who are fans of the Patriots. Unless you're a fan of the Patriots beforehand, then it's okay. So you get a pass. You're there. But I had a lot of people who would just cheer for the Patriots because they were doing well for so long. I cheered for the Broncos even when they struggled. I know we had a little success, but it's been rough the last few years. But that's not a big deal. But again, taking your kindness and goodness to the next level, gentleness to de-escalate most situations. Now, obviously, I hope we're not ever getting to a place where there's confrontation and stuff, but I know that it can be. But when we're able to handle things with gentleness, everything that is going on can be de-escalated. And gentleness is, like I said, that's your kindness and goodness ramped up to the next level. It doesn't come naturally. Again, it talked about in the scripture that we read that the spirit fights the flesh and the flesh fights the spirit. These are things that we're always going to battle with. These are things that are never going to completely go away. But I know we can do it with enough practice and trust in the Lord. And we're going to hop to the last one here, self-control. Self-control brings everything together in maturity of the Spirit. I talked about how big the emotions and stuff can be in terms of what these sports bring to us. We're talking about love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and gentleness. Those are all either reactions or emotions that run deeply inside of us as people. The self-control, like it says, when things come together, the thin line between reacting correctly and reacting incorrectly, it's not going to get you as often because you've practiced and you got to the point where you are able to control yourself and control the way you react to stuff. Does it mean you're going to be perfect? No. It's not going to get us all the time. That's why it says as often in quotes there. Because when we're able to develop the maturity to do this most of the time, we're going to do well. But it doesn't mean beat yourself up if it happens every now and then. And to be honest, it's our goal in every facet of life. It's not just obviously in just being a fan. Like I said before, it's kind of a small deal. This is, the way that we're supposed to be with our family, the way we're supposed to be with our church family, the way they're supposed to be anytime we're in the community, anytime we have the ability to love on people, the way that Christ would have us love on people. This progression is something that we need to take seriously in every facet. And again, the root of all of this, we have to remember, is love. If we didn't have the love driving all of it, none of this would happen. If we don't have the love for Christ, if we don't have the love for the Father and the love for the Spirit, we're not going to be able to push into these next levels. We're not going to be able to get the joy that comes from the Father. We're not going to be able to get the peace that comes from knowing that you don't live by the law anymore. You're not going to get the patience that comes from that peace. Without the peace, how are we going to be able to be patient with things? The kindness and goodness, all those things, they follow love. So that's the most important thing I want you to remember. So again, in this little silly example of being a fan, I just want you to remember the reason why you're there. Always make sure you go back to what's going on. Who are you there for and who are you representing? I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to remember who could be watching too. I mean, obviously we always know we have God the Father there. We have the Spirit inside of us. You know, those are big things to remember. But maybe there's somebody in the crowd that you've been reaching out to. You've been trying to get to church. Maybe there's somebody in the crowd who you know has been struggling in their faith, and they've been having a hard time focusing on what God would have them do. Maybe they're doubting and questioning things, and they're looking to somebody to show them that there's a reason to live this way. And you can be that light. I was thinking about it, and say you can be a light on top of the bleachers instead of a light on a hill, because it's important no matter where we are to be that light and to show that love to people and to be a reflection of Christ. Remember, it is okay to be frustrated. We have emotions, we have feelings. We do want people to do well. We want our teams to do well. We want our kids to do well. And it's okay to be frustrated with the way things go. So don't feel like it's a bad thing to feel that way. It's okay to not agree with the play call or the ref's call. Sometimes coaches do make mistakes. Refs' eyesights are not always what you hope they would be. They need to go see Michael and Larry. Maybe we'll get them fixed up. It's okay to not like the way parents or other fans are acting. It's okay to disagree with things that aren't good. That's all right. It's okay to cheer. It's okay to yell. It's okay to show displeasure. But be careful with that one. And Jesus will shine when you allow your actions to reflect him and his Spirit. And that's what it's all about. Again, we want to be able to show the love. We want to be able to show the grace. We want to be able to show Christ in even the smallest of things. And I think being a fan is one of them. But it carries big implications. One thing that I like to look at, and everything that we do, you might be the only person, you might be the only vision of Christ that some people ever get to see. And that doesn't matter if that's in the grocery store, it doesn't matter if it's in a parking lot, it doesn't matter if it's at Stone's football game, if it's at CCHS's soccer game, wherever it is, wherever you might be the only thing of Christ that someone gets to see that day. Take that opportunity, show that love, advance the gospel, advance the kingdom. That's what we're called to do in every little thing, not just the big things. It's not about going out and I talk about, I don't feel like I'm special being up here, being preaching here. I don't feel like I'm a special person because I get up and talk in front of the teens. I feel like the kids are special, and that's why I'm there. But it's not about what I'm doing there. It's about just going out there and being who Christ would have us be in everyday normal situations, no matter what that is. If it's getting out there, being at a game, having a good time. I love the pictures here because we can think of the beginning. It's before anything's happened, just the buildup and the love and the joy and the excitement that's coming from it. It's just a great feeling. But how are we going to do if at the end of the game it's when we're ranked in the top 10 and losing to an unranked team? How are we going to feel if it's, our team, this is the last play-in game to get into the playoffs, and we lost. And now my kid's senior year's over, and they're probably not going to play again. How are we going to hold ourselves together when outcomes of things aren't what we want in our lives? When it comes to maybe our health of a family member. How are we going to display the Spirit when it comes to the big things? I'm telling you, if you're not going to be able to carry it in the small things, like being a fan and doing those things, it's going to be very, very difficult when the big things and big tests come along to do that. So I just really want to encourage you guys as sports season is coming. I think UT's first game, I think it's the 26th, if I remember right. We've got the high school's up and playing. We're out there. We're at events and we're having fun. Let's try to remember to focus on the next game you go to, whatever it might be. If you're watching it on TV, if you're there in person, remember why you're there. Remember the love that you have for the team. Remember the love that Christ has for you. And let's do everything that we can to be the light on the bleachers, be the light on the hill that sets apart from the rest of the world. Make people question why you are the way you are. Make people question why it is that you can react in a way that when things are so tough. Because some people, the sports and stuff might be their life, and something that they tie into so hard that who knows the impact you could have. Now, if you are having you have questions or you have doubts or you're having struggles in terms of living out the Spirit, if you have any questions about Jesus Christ and who he was and what he did for you, please come forward as we now will sing the song of invitation. Got my thing.
Bless the